bass layer in your voice, bass picks up well.
Oh, yeah.
Always
baby.
a drop an octave. Hey, welcome back to another episode of Signal Fire Radio, a show about ambitious leadership for ambitious leaders, where each and every day we set out to conquer the villain of self-doubt by having encouraging conversations designed to feed the mind, strengthen the body, enrich your spirit, and grow your tribe. As always, I am joined by the unicorn of Wilmington, North Carolina, my bestie, the narwhal from NorCal, Matt Mylott. Matthew, how are you today?
Doing good. I'm in the Christmas spirit.
Yeah, I'm in the Christmas spirit too. What have you been doing that has gotten you feeling Christmassy?
Well, I was sharing earlier that last night we went caroling with Peter McGuire, our very own.
I need you to, because so Peter McGuire's a previous guest. If you haven't listened to his shows, you need to go back and check them out. Subscribe to Signal Fire Radio on all podcast platforms and check us out on YouTube. Describe Peter, if you will.
Oh, man.
Before we bring our guest in.
Radically intelligent. Genius. I mean, the guy's a genius.
Level genius.
I mean, he's an inventor, entrepreneur, author, professor, war crime.
Yeah. Drug smuggler. Former drug smuggler. Former drug smuggler. Yep.
An all-around cool Southern California big wave surfer.
And you guys went caroling.
Yeah, so we went caroling with Ren and Ashley Chapman and another one of our mutual friends, Bruce.
Whose idea was it to go caroling?
Ashley's.
Ashley's?
Yeah, you know how she's that free
Was it
spirit?
Impulsive or was it planned?
No, her and Sarah were
She
planning
got there
it out.
and said, here's your sheet music. We're going next door.
100%.
Fla la la
Yeah,
la,
no,
la.
this was completely planned. But no, it was fun, man.
You know, I spent the whole weekend doing the Nutcracker with the girls, and they killed it, by the way.
That's amazing.
Dude.
Did you have to dress up like an elf or anything for your caroling?
Oh, yeah. Did you dress up? That's a great question.
No, nobody
That
did.
really makes it, you know?
Yeah.
There's the music, but then there's the whole visual appeal, too.
Yeah.
Would you go caroling?
Absolutely, yes.
Without a gun to your head, you'd go do it, just like volunteer to go caroling?
My girls could get me to do just about anything, so yeah.
Yeah,
I have a terrible voice. My voice is so bad, they don't let me sing the birthday song. So I just would kind of hide in the background and just follow along.
Yeah, I don't care.
Follow along.
Yeah, but I bet you'd make a great front man. Like, you'd be a really good showman. The voice might not, you know.
Oh yeah, I might
up.
have to throw in a little dance or something just to keep everybody entertained. But the voice would definitely not impress anybody.
Now, you're a girl dad, too, as well.
That's right.
Full girl dad. Do you have
Absolutely.
2 or 3?
2 girls.
2 girls.
Yeah, well, 3 if you count my wife. She's my girl too.
So all 3 of us share that in common. Wife and 2 girls.
Yeah.
And
that's awesome.
How do we get any oxygen?
How do we get ourselves into these situations?
How do we get ourselves into these situations? How old are your daughters, David?
So Grace is 7, Olivia is 12.
Okay, so my Olivia is 7, and then Madeline is 3. So your
His
daughters are
age
very
groups are
close.
similar, yeah.
Can you guys school me from an older, like more OG perspective of having 2 girls and a wife?
Wait, let me light my wisdom pipe.
Yeah. Smoke your corncob pipe. When all 3 of them require your undivided attention at the exact same time, how the hell do you deal with that? Like,
I would start with who's ever loudest.
Okay.
But if nobody's being the loudest, then you would default to Black Six, the wife.
Okay, the wife first.
Yeah.
Okay, but so priority number 1 is who's loud, and then you work your way down. There was a moment over the weekend where my wife was where you're sitting, my eldest is right here, and my youngest is popped up in the middle, and all of them are talking to me at the exact same time, and I had such sensory overload. I didn't even know what to do. I just froze.
I think I just turned into a medical professional. It's airway, breathing, then circulation.
Yeah, right.
So whoever's threat is critical level alpha 1. That's what you take care of first. I think
The wolf that's closest to the shed.
Hey, we should introduce our guest.
You think so?
I do.
It's a perfect segue. Our guest.
There's no segue.
There is
I'm
no
just like,
segue.
let's introduce
We're
him.
a show free of segues. Our guest is David Reeser, CEO and founder of Opiate. David, can you just give our audience your 60-second spiel? Like, how'd you get to Wilmington? Let's start with that.
Sure. So, Wilmington was kind of a surprise stop for us. My wife and we knew we didn't want to live in Pennsylvania anymore because we had pretty much had it with the terrible winters.
Because it's Pennsylvania?
Yeah, it's Pennsylvania, and, it snows, and you have 18 inches on the ground. You can't get anywhere. So we just looked around the country and said, where could we live that we'd really be happy? We knew we wanted to be by the water, and we knew we wanted to have, a better quality of life, which Pennsylvania is great. It just wasn't for us anymore. So with a recommendation from a friend, they said, hey, check out Wilmington, North Carolina. It's a beautiful spot. It's by the beach. It's affordable to live there. And we're like, okay, we'll check it out for the weekend. We came down for a long weekend. And we loved it so much. And on the third day, we put an offer on a house, like, while we were away for the weekend. I had to go back and sell all of our stuff and basically make our way down some like 9 months later. So it's kind of a crazy story, but I usually tell people my wife told me get in the car, and then we left. That's what I have, because at the time I was a contractor, so we could basically live where we wanted to live.
What year was this?
So this was 2016.
Okay.
So I've been here for about 5 years.
Have you taken like big leaps of faith like that before in the past?
Oh, everything in my life has been big leaps of faith.
Okay.
So, I mean, I don't really see any difference. And honestly, I think it's one of these things of, just coming to a level of maturity of knowing who you are and the trajectory that you're on. Some things just make sense and you pull the trigger. So I knew that it was time to transition, and I don't have any problem turning pages, turning chapters because of part of my story.
Yeah. Sometimes people, I feel like, don't make those big jumps because maybe they don't recognize what that feeling is like that you just touched on. Can you what does that feel like to you when you're like, okay, all things are coming together, I feel a chapter closing, I see a new door opening. How does that what does that feel like to you?
That's a great question. We're definitely getting existential here. So yeah, let's go there. I think that's good though. So it feels logical to me. Let's put it that way. Because I know when things are coming to a close, just like in school, when the semester is coming to a close, you have to complete your assignments, you take a semester exam and you pass it and you move on to the next thing. Like, I can just see signs in my life when I know that relationships or an era in life is coming to an end, and it's bittersweet and you enjoy it, but you say thank you for the opportunity and you welcome the new one. So for me, it feels very logical. I knew that I was wrapping up my time there. I just didn't know exactly what that next step was. And when the light shone in front of me and I could see the next step, I said goodbye to what I knew and I stepped into, the quote-unquote unknown, but what I did know would be the right path, if that makes sense.
Did you grow up in Pennsylvania? Was that your ancestral?
Ancestral. Yeah. So born and raised in PA.
Okay.
What about your wife?
Same. Born and raised in PA. She grew up in a little country town called Ole. Shout out to Ole, Pennsylvania.
Oh, man.
Cows and corn, baby.
We're about to see downloads spike in Ole, Pennsylvania.
Ole, Pennsylvania.
Josh, let's make sure we geo-fence this episode.
Yeah.
Ole, Pennsylvania.
She's a good old girl from Ole, Pennsylvania, and I was a kid from Boyertown, although we moved a lot as kids, but we lived, all over kind of southeastern PA.
So what was that like, leaving your home, everything that y'all knew, to go to a place that you presumably knew nobody and really knew nothing about other than I feel good when I'm here? What inspires a person to do that? And how difficult is it to actually go through with that?
Well, it's tough, but I knew we were going to be able to drag some family here, so that's
not a hard sell, right?
Yeah, I kind of had that front loaded before we left that was going to work out that way, so I knew that we'd have family in town, so that was quite advantageous. But aside from that, I just knew that in order for me to personally and professionally grow, I had to leave where I was currently at, where we lived, because I didn't feel like I could become who I was becoming in the place that I was, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like, people only knew me as David. I worked in healthcare, I was like
your environment wasn't inspiring you.
It wasn't inspiring me, and there wasn't any upward trajectory available for me there, and people were too stuck in the past of what they thought about me, where they couldn't see where I was going, but I could, and I knew that it just couldn't happen there. It was almost like trying to plant a palm tree in Pennsylvania. You just know the soil isn't right for that root, And in order to transplant myself somewhere I could be successful, certain elements had to be in place. And when I came here, I just saw enough ingredients to realize that, that the soil here was good enough for me to put roots down in it, and we were right. And it wasn't immediate. Just like anything, it takes time. But it definitely was the right move.
Now, does she have a profession outside of the home?
Yeah. So my wife, first of all, is an amazing wife, an amazing mom. Shout out to Kristen Reeser, my girl. She's an amazing mom, amazing homeschool teacher, amazing wife, but she's also a professional writer, and she's ghost wrote books for individuals, and she writes for magazines and newspapers, and stuff. But yeah, she does it completely on her own accord and the things that she's most interested in. But she's a phenomenal writer.
Is she going to write a ghostwrite a book for you?
Yeah, actually, yeah. We started to write something that I thought was a book on sales. I don't know why I started there, but it really was it's kind of an interesting little twist.
I've always wanted to write a sales book.
Just pick up the damn phone. That's what my book is going to be called.
No, but it really isn't. It was more about, influence and like, how we come to understand value, both in our world and ourselves and in the things that we do. And as we started to unwrap this, literally we pulled out a funny story. We took a pizza box one time when we were away, my wife and I, because we had nothing to write on. She ripped the top off the pizza box, and we just started like bubbling out what this book would be about. And I was just telling stories of things that I've learned along my path. And she framed it in a way that it would be logical and interesting to the reader. So that eventually is going to become manuscript at some point. But I've got some more important things to do before telling any kind of story.
Do you guys often do that, where it's like you and her kind of partnering up together on projects?
We bounce things off of each other constantly because we're a team. But not in that respect so much. We try to separate my professional world from our, collaborative interactions, because it can get really overwhelming. But of course, I data dump on her on a daily basis, things that are going on, and bounce things off of her, but she's not actively involved in any of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But how good is that? Because I do the same thing with my wife. I'm like, I'm working through something. Will you help me do it? And she just gives perspectives that I never would have even considered. And then all of a sudden I arrive at something much better than what I was thinking about. I mean, for people how long have y'all been married for?
We've been married for 15 years in April.
Okay.
March, actually.
So she's been there through many of those leaps of faith.
Of course.
So, my wife does the exact same thing. Like, I'll be like, hey, I feel like I need to do this. Like, my story's so similar to yours, David. I was in Atlanta. We grew up in that area. I was done. Like, I felt like I had just given all I had to give to a corporation, and I just felt, I don't know, stuffed into a suit that I didn't want to be in anymore. And it was like, if I'm going to really do this the right way, I have to go somewhere new where I don't know anybody. I have to put down new roots, and I have to just be completely creative and completely free and totally untethered from what my responsibilities, whether they were real or imagined, from where home was. And she supported me in all of those. And I feel like a lot of people also don't jump because there isn't spousal buy-in to do that stuff sometimes. How did you guys come to that? Like, what's that? Without letting us too much into your marriage.
You definitely. Well, I'm just kind of walking through what you just told me. Which, thank you for sharing your story with me. There's power in our story. And because obviously, it's personal to you, means something to you, but also someone is likely walking through this right now. So it's obviously very impactful. So, I feel like it becomes one of these things where there has to be a trust in yourself first, in order even for your spouse to be able to put that trust in you, because it really is a big move and a new one. And there's going to be things where even if you do a lot of research ahead of time, you're just not going to know or understand or appreciate. And I definitely didn't do it the right way, and I'll share with you why that is the case. But I felt like I was ready to swim. You know what I mean? I had learned enough survival skills, if you will, in the professional world that I knew I had plenty of things to fall back on if things didn't quote-unquote work out, right? And my wife believed in me too, because she's seen me walk through some pretty tremendous challenges. And God willing, I've been successful in all of them, in one form or fashion. So she believed that I could overcome, but it put a tremendous stress on our relationship, a tremendous stress, on our ability to communicate. Like, it was really tough in the beginning, because I don't think I was prepared coming here and starting new businesses, because I anticipated I was going to be able to be a contractor in the same fashion that I was up north, but the market changed in the process of me selling a house and moving down here. So I had to start over again, and it essentially took me 18 months to really become a profitable contributor the way I was used to being. And that was tough. It was definitely tough. And it tested our marriage, but also made it stronger. Now we're in a position where she knows, and we both feel confident that it's always going to work out. It may not be the same picture of, completion that we may see at the end and be totally happy about it, but we know that everything is going to play out and that we can survive anything together. And I feel like it made our relationship stronger. It helped us to be able to be more wise, to offer advice, to support each other in different ways, and kind of know, like, when we need to step aside and let the other person kind of figure it out a little bit, and not offer as much opinion, if you will. But yeah, it's a delicate balance, and it's really tough in the beginning, but you have to, this becomes one of these scenarios, and I'm sorry if I'm talking too fast or not, the pace isn't right, but I think it becomes one of these scenarios of understanding what love actually is. It's not a feeling, because if you were waiting for it to be a feeling each day, I think you're going to be really disappointed in the tough times, but it's a decision. In my mind, it's a decision. You decide that you're going to love that person and support them. So there were times my wife was definitely not thinking I was her favorite person. Let's just put it that way. And but we're completely on the other side of that. She's my best friend. I love my wife. I love my girls. I have an amazing, amazing, blessed life. Like, I literally couldn't ask for it better. I think about it every day. I really do. And I get to do something I genuinely love. I love working in healthcare. I love caring for people. I love building things that mean something. And doing it in the spirit of love for the individual, and I feel like we've come a tremendously long way.
Is that where, like, the idea for Opiate kind of started?
Yeah, the spirit of Opiate is a love for my neighbor. It's literally as simple as that. I want to see my neighbors come home at night, and when I looked in my backyard, Wilmington, I consider Wilmington, North Carolina, to be my home. Right, not the place that I live now. I'm not from Boyertown anymore. I'm from Wilmington. This is my home, and I wanted to see it be as amazing a place to live and to work as it can be. And I looked in my backyard a few years ago and said, "Wow, why are all these people dying? Like, what are we getting wrong?" I worked in healthcare. We wouldn't accept the type of outcomes we get here from opiate addiction or anything else. We wouldn't accept those outcomes in any other area of medicine. We wouldn't. And I just thought, I was like, there's something we got to do. It's almost like seeing a child in the street about to get hit by a car. You're just going to stand there and do nothing, or use the strength and speed and wit that you have to prevent it from happening.
That's amazing, man. So give us the origin story of Opiate, right? Because you were in healthcare professional, and obviously, I mean, the why to do it so foundationally secure in making a big decision like that, because you're really, we were talking about a little bit before the show, kind of upending in some regard the way that addiction is treated, right? So tell us a little bit about what it is, what it does, and then more importantly, like, just how you got to there.
Okay, cool. So if I get a little too nerdy, because I can go from speaking about the genesis of Opiate to getting in the weeds of how the technology works, which really it's not as important. So back in 2018, I formed Opiate. I was a co-founder of Opiate. Stan Martin was an additional co-founder. Back in 2018, started Opiate because we saw this genuine need in Wilmington. And 6 months prior to that, which really is the beginning, is we looked at this substance use disorder problem, opioid addiction in Wilmington. We're like, man, this is a humongous problem. Like, why is it so bad? Like, I didn't actually even understand it. I come from healthcare. We had our own stigmas about this, which are not founded in data. It's just misinformation. But what we did was every month we had these monthly stakeholder meetings, if you will, where we had police officers and judges and treatment professionals, people in care, their family members, like a number of different people, scientists, behavioral psychologists, you name it. We got together every month at Tech Mountain. We had these monthly meetings, and by the sixth month, we had like 50 people in the room, all weighing in on what they thought, were textures and of the problem from their perspective. And we basically put this together and said, you know what? There's probably a way utilizing technology where we could implement something here to create a positive outcome. So let's go ahead and start this company. Let's start Opiate. And when we first started Opiate, the thought process was, well, let's help people at that very moment, the darkest moment in their life, when they're literally overdosing, when they're dying, like they're sitting there dying. So I applied for some patent protection around a device, and we basically drew this device up that would have the capacity to have onboard naloxone, Narcan, essentially on the device and inject it directly into someone's arm using microneedles when it sensed that someone's SpO2 dropped below 80% and their heart rate was, in the upper 40s, knowing that they're likely overdosing. And that's what we were originally going to do. We were going to develop this life-saving device. Long and behold, getting something like that to market is next to impossible to get FDA approval on, and it costs somewhere around $50 million. So I was like, maybe this isn't the way for us to do this.
Drop in the bucket.
Yeah. So we're like, what other ways can we do this? I even applied for some federal funding from the National Institute of Health to develop this device, and there wasn't a real hunger for something like that.
Why not?
Well, mostly because FDA will not approve a closed loop device for detection of opioid use disorder or for overdose and reversal. And it's just because it's kind of like a hiccup on the hardware side for FDA, which I'm sure there's somebody out there, FDA, thinking, that's not the exact reason. I'm not an FDA consultant.
Yeah.
But the long story short is it's just very challenging because I actually work with a researcher who's essentially created a more sophisticated closed loop system, and they won't approve him either. So anyway, I could go on for a while about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so like just to kind of set the context of it, I think there was like 100,000 opiate deaths in 2020, overdoses. And you saw that here locally in the Wilmington area as being more than what your conscience would allow you to not go do something about, right? Am I summarizing that correctly?
Yeah, that's correct. In this past calendar year, there have been over 100,000 confirmed overdose deaths.
Wow.
And that's, I believe, a 30% increase from the 12-month period before.
How do you think we got to that? Let's start there.
Yeah.
How does that happen? Because we weren't dealing with this 10, 15, 20 years ago, were we?
It actually did start about 20 years ago, but it really got bad in the last 12, I would say, depending on how you define bad. But it became a terrible, unignorable tragedy in the last 12 years. And really, the genesis of all this, just like most things in the world, is that we put profit before people. I mean, it's literally as simple as that. We put profit before people. We put making profits ahead of making sure that our citizens were safe.
Right. I was just talking to Josh, our production guy, earlier before the show, but that creepy 7-minute infomercial on OxyContin that was shot back in the late 90s. And they're profiling like 4 or 5 different actual patients that used it for whatever chronic issues they had. And it's this beautiful video. And, part of it was I saw it in a documentary or a news report where they basically followed those individuals like into 2015 or whenever it was made. And 3 out of 5 of them were dead.
Really?
And 1 was heart failure and the other 2 were overdose. I mean, it was just super creepy. But it was made to look like this beautiful miracle drug.
Oh yeah, the way all the drug commercials look like. Take this one pill and you'll be canoeing with your loved one. Right. In
that does exist. It's called ecstasy.
Matthew, this is a show about not doing opiates. I don't know where ecstasy.
You know what the reality is, though. Not to break up the fun here, but the reality is opiates aren't evil.
Yeah.
Opiates are not evil.
Yeah, that's like saying any inanimate object is good or bad.
That's exactly it.
Guns aren't evil.
Yeah, it's the same as the gun argument, right?
Yeah. I look at addiction. I'm just going to use the word addiction. I don't particularly love that word, but I'm going to use the word addiction. I think addiction is just an unhealthy relationship with a person, activity, or thing. I mean, that's just it. It's an unhealthy relationship. And in this case, we had an unhealthy relationship with a particularly powerful drug where its power and its use cases were loosely defined, in order to increase profit. And when they understood the ability, and I say they, in this case, when pharmaceutical companies and individuals interested in those companies being successful, there are a lot of people to blame. When they saw that it was financially advantageous to create an opportunity for them to generate more revenue and create more ambiguity about what was actually happening. I don't remember where I was going with this. Anyway.
Well, no, we were talking about the sex appeal and how beautiful these commercials were, making it look like it was perfect.
Yeah, they made it look beautiful, and they created groups to hide what was actually happening. It was just
creepy.
It was organized. You know, it was like this organized level of accountability, like this hidden level of accountability where it was almost like, I hate to compare it to this, but it kind of feels like it, like organized level of making sure that the one level didn't know what the other level was doing, one hand didn't know what the other hand was doing. Almost like what happened with the gas chambers. You know, like I don't do anything, I just push a button.
Right.
I don't do anything, I just drive this rail car. You know what I mean? It became the engineered accountability. You know, and at the end of the day, only the people in the pearly towers making the money who was so far from the problem, they didn't see the dying, you know, were perpetuating the issue. And that's what we have today, which, you know, I look at this whole crisis that we're having now. It's really epidemic. You know, we may have a vaccine for COVID-19, but we don't have one for addiction. You know, so people continue to die every day. Every day in the U.S., 200 people pass away. They overdose. That's like a 747 going down every day.
Yeah.
You know, that would make the news every day, and people wouldn't accept it, but here we are, right? And in the U.S., you know, we may make up a small population of the world, but we consume 80% of the opiates produced. Why is that? Right? Some crazy statistics. But the reality is this: we can focus on the problem, or we can focus on creating solutions.
Yeah.
You know, in my mind, I feel like this is a great opportunity to deliver people. Right? I see addiction as something people need to be freed from. We got to give them back their power. You know, something that's taken power from them. We got to give it back to them.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm about focusing on okay, we're in a mess.
Yeah.
How do we clean this up?
Right.
You know, how we give people back their power and their dignity. That's why I don't refer to anybody as an addict. They're my neighbor in recovery. You know what I mean? Everyone's my neighbor, but they're my neighbor in recovery. They're not an addict. You know, addiction is a physiologic response, not a moral failing. Right? Anybody can become physiologically addicted to an opiate within 5 days. Anyone. Doesn't mean they will.
Yeah.
But they could.
Yeah.
Right? Knowing that that's the case, and that it's just your body responding to what is being, you know, given to it. Let's look at this a little bit differently. Let's frame this differently. You know, and the data proves it out.
Are you a threat to the established order? I mean, there's people still making tons of money on opiates. Are you
Not a threat.
No?
No. This is quiet innovation.
Yeah.
You know, we're just working in the background, and one day everyone's going to wake up, and a cog within this clock, this wheel, is going to be removed, and a new one's going to be put in. And when they wake up, there'll be no removing it anymore. You know, what we're developing is the first real objective data of how someone is doing within their recovery that's tailored to them, a personalized approach. You know, so the reality is this. I don't feel like we're disrupting anything. I think we're adding a tool to the bag that just wasn't there before. That's it. How it gets utilized, technology is just a tool.
Yeah.
You know, it can make things better, faster, and cheaper. That's it. So is a shovel. Shovel's a tool.
Yeah.
You can dig a hole. Bless you. You can dig a hole, plant a tree that everybody can enjoy, or you can take that same shovel and knock your neighbor over the head with it. Right? How are you going to use it?
Fair.
Yeah. How are you going to use it?
Yeah, weapon of opportunity, right? Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How are you going to utilize it,
Yeah.
right? So in this case, I look at technology as an opportunity. You know, in this case, biometrics using wrist-worn devices, you know, and AI analyzing data. We see that as an opportunity to do good, you know, and for those that want to utilize in that fashion, they'll have the opportunity to utilize in that fashion. They choose not to use it, it's up to them too. It's all about free will. I don't see us disrupting the way it's being done. I just think we're going to make it better.
What would be what is the, because you talked about outcomes, like for you personally, because I'm sure you have a number in your mind. What do you want to see opioid effect? Like if we're dealing with 100,000 deaths, what does that look like to you? What does the end state look like to you where you can go, heck yeah, we did that, and we're having a positive outcome on people's quality of life and the length of life period, you know, frankly, that people are getting. Have you thought about that at all?
Yeah, I think you can certainly put a quantitative measure to something like that. It might be reassuring because it's a very clear goal. But I think the quantitative piece is more important. Like I'm not really interested in just achieving something financially advantageous or being able to stand back and say, oh, we saved 100,000 people. Like I want to do this, first of all, in a spirit that reflects my own beliefs, you know what I mean? And do it in a way that is honoring, and people will see that it's honoring to the people who are our neighbors in treatment. But if I were to kind of put a benchmark on the success, I think what it would be is to make opiate available to anyone in treatment, whether they could pay or not pay. Like, that's my goal. I want everyone to have access to this in one form or another. They're going to. I tell you, they're going to. And then have that play some role in their successful recovery and long-term recovery. You know, right now, and this is kind of how I'm building this solution. Our team is building a solution. I'm not doing it personally. We're doing it as a team. So the Opiate team is building the solution because we know that if we can help one specific area called medically assisted treatment, it's essentially the gold standard care for individuals being treated for opioid use disorder. If we can help MAT be more effective in the first 12 weeks of treatment, we know that research has scientifically proven that those individuals have much better long-term outcomes. So our initial goal, if I were to set a benchmark myself, is instead of having 1 out of 3 people, that's the national average, 1 out of 3 people stabilize the first 12 weeks in treatment, I want to make it 2 out of 3, just one more person. If we can make the average 2 out of 3 people stabilize in the first 12 weeks, we'll change the world. No question about it. And that's really our goal. All of our data science, our platform, the way we built this, is to improve that first piece. Long term, I've got much bigger plans, but that's the first goal.
Now, is the device and the technology, is it, and maybe you can't answer this, but is it like intended for like long-term use? Or is it really just during that initial 3-month or 6-month phase from being sober? Like, what's the strategic uses of it, I guess?
So initially, the goal with, because there's really 2 components that we're working on. One is a decision support tool, if you will. You can think about it as like training wheels for the doctor, which certain physicians are trained to treat just substance use disorder and they're experts at it. Others are just kind of thrown into it because we have such a big problem. It's not their area of specialty. So I'm using data science to extract data out of their electronic health records to just help them guide their decision making so that they can catch people before they relapse. Just basic stuff, you know? But then the other piece is strictly biometric. So utilizing a device agnostic platform. So if you have a Fitbit, an Apple Watch, whatever it is that you're wearing, utilizing the hardware that the patient already has, you know, we're utilizing these over-the-counter devices essentially to analyze the data in order to identify individuals who are struggling with withdrawal symptoms and quantifying it in a metric fashion so that they can get better and more focused, personalized care early in treatment. So initially, we're designing it for early entrance into medically assisted treatment. So we're thinking like the first 6 months, essentially, of medically assisted treatment to help guide that time, which is a very difficult time, and most of the time when individuals will relapse and actually overdose within the first couple of weeks. It's kind of a very tricky time to navigate appropriately. But beyond that is my hope that this same platform, the same personalized biometric insight can be utilized 5 years down the road by the same individual. You know, utilizing these devices like they're being utilized for exercise now or sleep quality. You know, they'll get insights into their recovery. You know, things that have caused them to potentially crave in the past being around familiar people, places, and things, and a kind of like a seismic activity, if you will, in
like
their
triggers.
waveforms. Yeah, triggers, but something that would kind of like see the little tremors that happen before a big earthquake. Right, so that you don't see those stories where it's like, I just don't know what happened. You know, they've been clean for 4 years. You know, there was no signs that, like, I don't even think they were stressed, and they went and overdosed.
But there were
in the bathroom.
signs underneath the skin
Absolutely,
level.
100%, absolutely, just below the surface. And sometimes people are not or feel it but don't say it. You know, and sometimes they don't even know it. But what if we knew it? What if they got a trigger? What if there was AI in the background letting them know and their support team around them, which you had referenced a little bit about earlier, you know, a support team around them that said, hey, you know, Tim, Jennifer, John, Jennifer, whoever, you know, they're not doing so well right now. You know, and this was all permission-based on what our
so as
wanted.
the therapy is part of it, they build a communication framework around, they select my doctor, my dad, my wife, and my best friend. You guys can all access this information?
And to whatever level that they're comfortable with, too. Right? So that this community of care around them, their support community around them in the recovery, you know, they could get notifications that were appropriate to their level of interaction, i.e. physician could see, you know, cardiac waveform data, you know, interpreted behavioral data, you know, whereas their mom might just see, the little speed dial saying that, he's in the red zone right now. Like he's not feeling
even like
good
a
at
little
all.
text message that says, "Hey, give Matt a call right
Like
now."
a dashboard.
Literally as simple as that. So yeah, we are building a patient-facing dashboard to do this very thing. And then for the individual in treatment, they can share whatever they want to share. They don't have to share anything. It's completely up to them. But at the same time, it gives them a front-facing view of their own recovery, where they are in their trajectory.
Yeah.
The fact that they're maybe in a danger zone, and to ask them basic questions that we know are important. Hey, when was the last time you exercised? Do you know what I mean?
What's your diet look like right now?
Yeah, simple things, cognitive behavior therapy, which is well understood, and try to identify these patterns that lead to them relapsing, right? So they can utilize that data years out, way past them even seeing a clinic or a clinician.
It's fascinating. This is absolutely fascinating. You said something that I want to go back to because I think it's important to isolate it and talk about it specifically. And I think it goes more into your process, maybe your mindset. I asked you about qualitative versus quantitative results. And you said something to the effect, which is a lesson that I got very, very early on from an early mentor of mine. Basically, it summarized to this: if you do the right things, it's impossible to get the wrong results.
Was that Tom?
No, that wasn't Tom. That was Greg. Shout out to Greg Free.
Not Tom Blevins.
Not Tom Blevins or Tim Blevins, or Tom Reichert or Tim Reichert. Is that, do you feel that's kind of how you lead to as well? Like, I'm going to put the right people, we see the mission, we understand the objective, let's just do the stuff and not focus on what that number looks like or what that data necessarily looks like for us to point back to and say, okay, yeah, we're successful right now.
Yeah, that's essentially it. Put people before profit, right? Do things with excellence. And take a scientific approach. Do your work, do your research, don't guess. And just do the next right thing. And it will build momentum on itself. And the place you find yourself, the destination that you set for yourself and where you actually arrive is a good place. And it'll be profitable. It'll be all the things it needs to be. But you got to start out with a why. Like, I have a true north question at Opiate. It's literally this simple, because there's a lot of things that we're doing. It's complex. I mean, it's data science, right? It's not rocket science, which I'm sure is harder, or musical theory, but data science is pretty hard, all right? But there's a simple true north question we have, and is, will this help my neighbor in recovery? I ask myself that, especially difficult decisions where I'm not quite sure, will this help my neighbor? If it's no, I put it out of my mind, move on to the next thing. And that cuts my decisions down in half. Then if it's a yes, is it now? Or at what point does it make sense? Like, where is this intersection with this solution, person, or opportunity, in the future? And then I just mark it down. I need to revisit this in March, and in doing that, I always keep the focus on my neighbor, so that everything is geared toward that, and everything that we do is congruent with that end goal in mind, and everything else will work itself out.
Josh, will you pull that last minute to minute and a half for me? I'm just going to play that in the mornings.
Yeah, that was eloquent.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
No, it
Yeah,
was deep.
How long, like at what point in your career did you come to that understanding like that's how I'm going to lead my organizations?
Wow. That's a great question. I would say, so before I started Opiate, I had built an IT company here called IT Works, Wilmington. We basically offered cloud infrastructure to doctors, attorneys, local government. And I moved into, a CEO position. We were a two-person company. I was like CTO, CEO. It felt fun. I'm a newbie.
AKA
yeah, it's
hospitality
two-person company.
and housekeeping.
The reality is, though, like, that's a nice company. That's a nice company. And we had some pretty legit clients, too. I mean, it was pretty cool. But kind of get back to your question is, like, I just decided then, since I was in a position of real leadership, I was like, I'm just going to do the right thing. Like, we can be high tech, high touch, and do the right thing, and it always pays off. Because this is the thing, people, you can do the wrong things, get really wealthy for a short time, but if you still want to be in the game 10 years later, you better be taking care of people. That's just the truth. It doesn't matter what the industry is or what decade it is, And we all make decisions emotionally, or we all buy emotionally, but we make decisions intellectually, right? So I knew that taking that approach was going to lead to long-term successes, which is what I was interested in. I came to this community and made it my home. I don't want people wanting to kick me out 6 months later. I don't know if that's really a direct answer to your question. But with Opiate like got back to my roots in healthcare. And that's one of the reasons it was directly interesting to me. I remember very clearly that I was trained first as an X-ray tech and then as an MRI technologist. And I remember always being very compassionate with patients. And honestly, like when I was 2, I knew I wanted to be a physician when I was 2 years old. And like I still want to be a physician. I plan on when I'm done Opiate, I'm probably going to go back to medical school when I'm 50. Like I'm wait till my kids are old enough.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, no, I'm serious.
Yeah.
My wife knows too. But I have a couple classes I have to take before taking the MCATs and everything. But I plan on going back to to medical school when I'm 50. And I just think about it. Back in the day when I graduated from X-ray school, they worked us like dogs. And they were like, "Oh, David's so compassionate. Like he'll burn out of that and like kind of settle in like the rest of us."
Caregiver fatigue or whatever.
Yeah. But the reality is, you just get to the point. Like a lot of folks get to the point where they burn out a little bit, so they try to balance being compassionate with doing their job, quote unquote, and just getting through it. I was never that way. I was very heavy on compassion. But because of that, I was really excellent at what I did, and people wanted me to work with them because they knew I cared about them like they're my brother or sister. And that never wore off, and I brought that into Opiate too. So I really think about the people who are suffering. Like I really wanted to design this and implement it too in a way that's really thought-worthy of them. And when I go back to medical school too, I'm going to come out and practice, and I plan on being like a medical missionary. My wife's going to write their stories, and we already planned this out. I'm going to travel different places and set up clinics. I'm not taking insurance. I'm doing my own thing because I won't really need the money. And my wife's going to write their stories, and I just want to care for them. That's high tech, high touch, and just all heart, because AI can't replace human interaction.
A whole new Doctors Without Borders concept, right?
Yeah, pretty much. I plan on doing Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah.
Get
Jenna and I in on that. My wife is an FNP, and we were sitting in church the other day, and I was like, you know what? When we finally get the time, like, let's just go. Like, she loves doing that. She loves caring for people. I don't know anything about it, but I'll go with her. I'll provide security or something like that, whatever's needed for me. But when you get to that point, if you need another provider, Jen will be the first one.
I appreciate that. That'd be awesome.
We'll travel with you all day long.
I've done missions work before, and it's super fun, incredibly rewarding. Like I can see myself. I mean, I try working out the numbers. I'm a balance between dreamer and execution. You know what I mean? Because you can dream, but a dream is just a dream until it becomes a plan, and then you actually execute on it. So I've set these goals up for myself. God willing, I'll have the opportunity to execute on them. But I plan on doing that till I'm done. I'm going to ride that pony all the way out. But Opiate is my focus right now. I've cut out everything else. I've sold my other business or my equity in my other business. I've cut out any possible distraction. This is my 100% focus outside of my family and my faith. So 100% focus on Opiate and helping people.
Good for you, G. So what's like the next evolution of it? Like, where are you guys at in terms of getting it to the market at scale?
So this is where we're at currently. We finished our version 1 software of our decision support tool. It's integrated currently into an EHR called Cario. So our goal is to establish key relationships in order to expand that within the network of providers and other electronic health record systems of clinicians that treat substance use disorder in order to gain outcomes data that can take back to insurance companies. I know that's a mouthful, y'all.
No, I got it. Matt didn't get it. Poor Matt.
Man, I appreciate it. Sorry, I'm front loaded with this stuff.
Matt's our high touch leader. I'm the high tech leader.
Right. Well,
clearly.
I'll give you the high tech stuff. So I'll tell you the other thing that's
iPhone.
I'll tell you the other thing that's a little more fun and maybe actionable is that Opiate is now constructing a clinical trials phase 2. We're applying for what's called a Small Business Innovation Research Grant phase 2 through the National Institute of Health. When we submit that, we'll hopefully be starting a phase 2 clinical trial in September of 2022. And what this is a world's first, actually. And what we're developing is a biometric algorithm that is device agnostic, so using essentially any device. Our platform will be able to normalize that data to be able to quantify withdrawal and essentially suggest what to do with that data to physicians so that they can do what's called a just-in-time intervention, basically see people as they're relapsing or before they're relapsing and see how their biometrics can be used to guide their treatment process. In doing that, it'll be the first ever FDA-approved algorithm to do that worldwide.
Wow.
Yeah, and so there's a lot of buzz and a lot of interest around that because it could significantly change outcomes, which means our neighbors come home at night.
Yeah.
So if we crack the code on that, which we have a proof of concept that we've developed as a result of our phase 1 funding, but if we can prove it out and commercialize in phase 2, that's when things are going to get real interesting. Will be the next potential big thing. And I see the success. I know that's where I live, but I'm also a realist. Lots of things can happen between now and then, but we're on track to be the first FDA-approved company to create biometrics around substance use disorder. If that happens, we will change the world. There's no question about it. No question about it.
Dude, that's unreal. I don't know that I've been in as close proximity to what you're feeling right now. Like, in that close proximity. To being to a person that's that close to, like, really...
Oh, I thought you meant the creativity behind it.
I mean, I've been close to him at other times in the community, but not like that. I mean, that's big. There's a lot of gravity that goes into that. That's incredible, dude.
Now, see if a Marine, you know how a Marine did not envision this?
We would have written it in crayon.
That, yeah. And as soon as we detected any issues, we would have just made this device that automatically handcuffed him. And then we'd be like, all right, situation's neutralized.
You're done.
We have time.
It's locked down. We're good. We can get to him. Man, that's impressive, dude. It really just boils down to that's incredibly impressive, and we're rooting for every single success that we hope is coming your way. Not because it edifies you in any way. Obviously, you're the visionary of it because it changes lives. I think we've gotten to a point maybe within society where we are in love with celebrity a little bit too much, and it's like, well, let's take it down a couple notches and let's look at community and how are we impacting community each and every day. I think about that all the time. I'm really concerned about legacy. It sounds like you think along those lines too as well, that it's not so much about what can I make my life look like, but how will I be remembered, when my time is done.
What's wild is I don't care if anybody remembers me.
Yeah.
I don't care if they remember a name. I literally don't care. I don't even care if they remember the name of the company. None of this is important to me. All I want to know is that I gave my very best. And I feel like we were all born with skills and abilities, and that they weren't given to us for us to benefit from them directly, but they were given to help somebody next to us. So as much as it's in my power, I'm going to use all my energy, all my creativity, everything that I got to pay it forward. And if I'm remembered for it, great. If I'm not, I very literally don't care. In fact, I'd rather you not remember me or anything that I did, as long as I know that I did my best. That's it.
Yeah. I'm not going to say.
The two can coexist, though, right? You can do your best.
Of course, yeah.
Yeah. They're not mutually exclusive.
Yeah, no, and lots of great things can happen from this. But ultimately, you have to be focused. I want to make sure we build something that's meaningful, and set it up in such a way that has an opportunity to thrive. It's like you don't want to put a tree in a pot. It's only going to get so big.
Yeah.
Right? So I want to be able to plant this somewhere where it has the ability to grow, just like me. Put it in good soil, give people access to it. And make it an opportunity that people could benefit for years to come, like a tree.
Yeah, don't put a palm tree in Pennsylvania, right?
Yeah, don't put a palm tree in Pennsylvania. And nobody remembers who plants the tree, but everyone gets to enjoy it. Yeah. So that's where I'm thinking, I just want to plant some trees.
You need to write a book, bro.
Hey, Kristen, where are you?
Have you been present for the past hour? The manuscript is sitting on the back of a pizza box right now.
Yeah, it's in a pizza box.
Do you remember the brand of pizza?
I was going to ask you what kind.
So I feel bad about this, but we were in Carolina Beach, and we stayed at the Hampton Inn. It's the place right around the corner. So if you're right around the corner from the Hampton Inn, shout out to your pizza shop. I can't remember the name of it. The pizza was
Michelangelo's?
amazing. It might be Michelangelo's.
Was it on Lake Park, or was it on the the boardwalk?
You could walk it from the hotel right there, and it is right on the boardwalk there.
Right next to Britt's Donuts.
Yes.
Yeah, what's the name of that place?
I don't know.
They sold it, and it's something else now, but yes, we've had pizza there, and it was amazing.
The pizza's awesome.
This episode is sponsored by the pizza place that's right down the street from the Hampton Inn.
Right next to Britt's Donuts.
If you're near Britt's Donuts, please bring us a pizza so we remember your name when we do free advertising.
Mention Signal Fire Radio, you might get inquisitive look on your face. Like, no, I'm supposed to get 10% off because I listened to the episode and you guys sponsored it. I have no idea. It's brilliant. David,
awesome.
Thank you so very much for coming on, dude. We've been chasing you for like 6 months to try to get you to come on. And this is going to be our final episode of 2021.
Oh, wow, cool.
And it feels, Josh is shaking his head, it feels like it's like, like this, not this. It feels like it's a really nice end cap to our year, man. And it just, I'm excited for ourselves for 2022. I'm excited for you for 2022, and every single person that's listened to this podcast. Thank you for sticking with us for this entire year as we grew and we figured it out. And hopefully you'll continue to listen well beyond, because I don't have any intent on stopping this, Matt. Do you?
Can't stop, won't stop.
Can't stop, won't stop. All right, man.
Love it.
Yeah, David, thanks for coming on. That's going to do it for this episode of Signal Fire Radio. Until next time, Matthew, and actually until next year, go out and strengthen your body. Oh, I messed up the...
Expand your body. Expand your body.
Expand your body. Go out and strengthen. Shoot, Matt, I'm going to do it. Go out and feed your mind. There we go. Strengthen your body, enrich your spirit, and grow your tribe. And go be a signal fire in your community. And find yourself a Josh that will clean all this stuff up in post-production. We'll talk to you in 2022. Hey, we hope you enjoyed this week's episode of Signal Fire Radio. If you enjoyed it, please do not forget to connect with us on social media and click, subscribe, and turn on notifications here on the YouTube page so you'll never miss a minute of our content. Also, if you are an ambitious leader and you are involved in ambitious leadership and you want to be a guest on Signal Fire Radio, please get in touch with us. You can email matt@signalfire.media or rob@signalfire.media. We would love to talk to you about how you can get on our show, tell the world what your value is, and showcase your ambitious leadership across the digital landscape. We will talk to you next week.